There was only a couple people we could think of on the planet that wouldn't disappoint following Mitt Romney, and they're Andrew and Shauna Smith, which is why we invited them to be the buffer week between Mitt Romney and everyone else who speaks. They've created one of the largest restaurant operation companies in the nation. They've opened their first restaurant in Lehi, Utah, which is kind of the mecca of the United States, in 2008, and operated the business for the first year to get the much-needed industry experience. They developed an innovative partnership model which propelled the growth of each brand they have acquired, fueling operational efficiencies and high profitability. Today, the Smiths own and operate Kneaders Bakery and Café, R&R BBQ, Swig's, MoBettah's Hawaiian Styles, and Little Caesars restaurants. Since 2008, the Smiths have developed and constructed over $200 million in restaurant real estate, opened and acquired 165 restaurants, and currently employ over 5,500 employees in 12 states. If one of you would like to be number 5,501, they have people outside anxious to talk to you about having a career with 4 food groups, and they're right outside. We'd rather you not leave the lecture, but right outside they'll be here to visit with you. 4 food groups celebrated their 10-year anniversary this year, at the same time surpassing $190 million in revenue. Andrew and Shauna live in Highland, Utah, and have 2 boys, Christian, 18, and Tobin, 13. Please join me in giving a Wolverine welcome to Andrew and Shauna Smith.
Yes, you're doing this with me. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have people actually give you some of your time to us, so we appreciate it. We're honored. I was here many, many years ago, back in 1993. That does age me a little bit. That was the last time I got a haircut. But in 1993, I was here. It was UVSC. My wife also attended here a little bit. Business major as well. But man, this campus, when you drive onto it now, it has changed just a little bit. It's pretty large, pretty impressive, and it's an impressive school. So I would just say that you guys made the right choice, because everybody that goes to UVU turns into a badass entrepreneur, just so you know. Can I say that here? Okay, I just want to make sure I can say that here. There's other schools I get kicked off the stage, so. We appreciate the time, though. We're food and beverage junkies, but I didn't start my career there. I was going to give you just a real quick background on who we are and where our career started, because many of you guys might go down a path and then realize that you want to make a change, and that's just fine. He did give us a great intro, but I will just start with real quick our background. We are the parents of 2 great kids, Christian 18, Tobin 13, and they keep us very, very busy. There's a question that we get asked all the time, and I'm just going to answer it right now, and that is, how do you build a really fast-growing company, a lot of responsibility, and then how do you have kids, and how do you have work-life balance? We've been asked that both individually and together a lot, and the answer is this: it's a fallacy. It's a myth. You can't have work-life balance with family. It doesn't work. So what we decided to do is work together, and then we also include our kids in everything that we do. In fact, it's very interesting that it happens that I can have a day at work, I'll come home and I'll ask my kids how they did in school, we'll do homework or whatever, and then they'll ask, how did this meeting go? How did that investor meeting go? How did the store opening go? They're involved in our lives and in our business, so I would just recommend all of you, as you guys get into business, make your kids' lives part of what you do. Not only does it make them more intelligent, I think, well, it's yet to be seen, but I think that it makes it so there doesn't have to be this work-life balance. There's just a balance in your life when you run a business. So just a thought. I'm from Chicago. I was born and raised in Chicago. There it is. And Shauna was born and raised in Alabama. So City Slicker, Southern Belle, I don't know how the heck it works, but they do say opposites attract. I was just attracted to her. I mean, why the hell would I not be? But she's from Alabama. I'm the City Slicker. So when we get in fights, I go for the backhand, she goes for the belt, and I just back off, just so you know. So she's like, don't say that. I don't beat my husband. That's what she's thinking right now. My outlet has thousands of horsepower involved. Who here has a 1,000 horsepower problem like I do? Anybody else here? Come on, raise your hand. You're just like, right. You're like this. Yeah. Be proud of it, right? No, I have thousands of horsepowers of problems. I'm actually racing semi-pro on the side, and it's something that I like to do. The only reason I bring this up is you have to have a goal and a passion in your life. You have to have something that's an outlet. We talk about it a lot. You chop a lot of wood and you carry a lot of water in business. You just do. And everybody has to do it. When you're an entrepreneur, you're working all of the time. And it's not a fallacy that if you want to be successful, it's getting more and more competitive, so you have to work all of the time. And for that reason, we say go out and sharpen your saw. My sharpening of the saw is this. My wife has 3 horsepower problems, and now it's turned into 4. She's a horse gal. It's a 4 horsepower problem, so we'll go work with her 4 horsepower. She never comes with me and works on the thousands of horsepower, but we do both have our outlets. It's important for you all to understand we are normal people that go out and do normal things occasionally, but it is important to sharpen your saw. That's one thing that I would say. Write down, make sure I sharpen my saw. You'll chop wood and carry water a lot better, okay? Anything you want to add about your horses?
Oh, I could talk all day.
Are you on?
I don't know.
Oh, you're on now.
Thank you. I could talk all day about the horses, but I would say yes. There has to be something that is an outlet that you can go do and just completely turn off the world and enjoy.
I think that she likes her horses more than me sometimes. So the tech industry. I started my career in the tech industry, which is crazy. I get asked all the time, how in the world did you go from tech to food and beverage? My philosophy is every single business has correlations across the board. There's stickiness across the board on any business. Whether you're selling a product in your consumer-facing product company, retail, tech, SaaS, food and beverage, it does not matter. They all correlate somehow. You still have to raise money and have money and cash flow. You still have to operate a P&L and make it make sense. You still have to operate on a margin. You have to build a team. It doesn't matter what your widget, your product, your service is. It all correlates. And it's been very interesting to see how my career has gone very smoothly. I mean, it's just been like this my whole career, right? It's just been so smooth the last 20 years that I've been an entrepreneur. I remember starting my first business here. Perfect timing, growing. I sold it on the back end of that, started my next company. So I went through a pretty big cycle in the dot-com era when the dot-com bubble burst. I was right in the middle of that. Those were some dark days. I actually sold my company on the backside of that and survived when many didn't. Dark days, you learn a lot. Started my next company, sold it at the bottom of it, started my next company, drove it up and sold it on the top end, but on the backside of that top end again. So I've gone through 2 big bubbles, and they've burst both times, right when my company was growing like this. So the reason why I say that is I've raised a bunch of money, a bunch of private equity money. I've run big companies. I've scaled them quickly, fast growth. And when that's happening, you always think in your mind, that's never going to end. It's always going to be like this. You'll be hiring people, jet setting, have the limelight. And then there's a time where you're sitting in your bed looking at the ceiling going, holy crap, what the hell am I going to do tomorrow? I have to make payroll. I don't have money to do it. And the whole market is crumbling beneath my feet. So you just have to understand that nobody's career has been smooth. No one's. I don't care what it looks like. It's not been smooth. If any of you guys came to some of the other previous lectures, I know some of those guys very, very well. If you were to have Jeremy Anderson standing right here, and we've talked many times, it's not smooth for him either. It hasn't just been like this. It's been very rocky for him as well. And almost every other entrepreneur you're going to talk to, it's going to feel that way. The only reason I show you this right here is it's never smooth. It hasn't been smooth for me. It hasn't been smooth for most everybody that has had any level of moderate or great success, okay? So 10 years ago when Shauna and I started this company, I was actually the CEO of my last tech company, and we were up in Lehi, Highland area. We live in Highland, and there's no food up there 10 years ago. I mean, it's changed tremendously over the last 10 years. We're like, we need some food. Let's get into some industry, because I just sold my business. Let's get into some industry that is less shock absorbent. I mean, you literally are so connected in the tech industry to the cycles of the markets that I wanted to get into something that was a little bit more shock resistant. So food and beverage, everybody's always eating, and I saw that. But I was told one thing by many people I talked to about my next venture that I was going to do, and that was food and beverage, and that was, that's ridiculous. I would never do that because food and beverage is so risky. Well, I was in a business that was super risky too, and that was tech with the markets doing this. Actually, when everybody's standing around going, I don't have a job, or I'm miserable because my tech company's not doing well, or other markets, they're still sitting there eating a bowl of soup, drowning away their problems, right? So I liked the fact that the food and beverage industry was recession-proof. So that's one of the reasons why I went into it. And I also like when people say you can't, or you can't make money in the restaurant business. I have fortunately been able to prove that wrong, and I think that we're going to continue to be able to do that. But either way, though, we started this 10 years ago. When we started it, though, we had to have a purpose, and one of the purposes that Shauna and I wanted back in 2008 when we started this is that we wanted to create as many jobs as possible. Back in 2008, if any of you guys can remember, and of course, I know there's a variety of ages here, but in 2008, there was a lot of people that needed a lot of jobs, right? There were not enough jobs. People were literally out of a job making 6 figures or next to, literally coming in and interviewing for jobs that we were going to be paying $8 to $10 an hour for. It was breathtaking, really. We would open it up and say, we need 60 people for this restaurant. We'd get 900 to 1,000 applications for those positions. And these were very overqualified individuals. So we really wanted to have a purpose, and that's important. I'm going to talk about purpose in a bit. But we wanted to create as many jobs as possible. We wanted to apply a systematic approach to the F&B industry. We wanted to prove that you could take an emerging brand that has kind of hit a wall for growth, and we wanted to add principles and processes and duplication so that we could scale that brand to something that would create real, true enterprise value. And that's what we set out to do when we started with restaurant number 1, and she ran it every single day with our team. To build momentum for multiple brands, we knew we were going to be a multi-brand house. We started the company's name as 4 Foods Group because when I went to elementary school, there was only 4 food groups, right? Now there's like quinoa and kale and all that crap. Not that I don't like it. She likes it.
I do.
But either way, we wanted to go back to our roots, and there's always been 4 food groups. We wanted to make sure that we were doing anything that made sense within the food industry and that had different genres and different flavor profiles. And then last but not least, we wanted to create a legacy. And it's important that you decide when you go into business, are you going into business to create a family-owned enterprise where you have some freedom and then you can make enough money to take care of your family, or are you trying to create a legacy that you can then pass on to the generations of people that work with the business? We see this business always existing. It is our last business that we will start, and we see that it will be a legacy for generations to come for many reasons, and that is everybody will always eat, and there will always be an emerging brand looking for scale, capital, and a professional team to help them get them there, and that's us. So that was our purpose. Yes, we've had our moderate success, and if you look at that slide right there, you go, wow, it's just like a hockey stick, you know, it has been that. But when you look at that, there are so many tales to tell of the scars that Shauna and I have from running a business that is so fast-growing. Fast-growing businesses, which I've experienced many times now, they have their problems. From the outset, people come to me and they say, oh my gosh, 4 Foods Group, I know those guys. They're killing it. I'm like, yeah, we're killing ourselves. There's a lot of work included in doing something like this. We see ourselves doing this and a lot more in the coming years, but it comes with its own set of problems and failures. I'm going to have Shauna touch on that for a moment. With that growth, like I said earlier, you have to have a purpose. If your purpose in business or to go into business is just money, I promise to each of you it will be highly anticlimactic when you get there. If you do not have another purpose, first and foremost, of what you're trying to accomplish, you're going to get the money, you're going to pop the champagne, or grape juice, apple cider, whatever you... and you're going to go make out. And then after that, you're going to say, do you know what? That was really exciting, but I still have to wake up tomorrow, and I have to go do something with my life. What's my purpose? I'm just telling you that. I promise you you'll feel that way once you guys hit some sort of a goal. And I'm not saying not have a goal that's a financial goal, but just make sure you have a purpose before that financial goal, because finances, honestly, they come and go, and it doesn't really matter. And I know that what you're doing is you're sitting there going, yeah, that's really easy for you to say. It's not easy for me to say, because it was anticlimactic for me. It's probably been very anticlimactic for Shauna, because when you do it, you kind of go, woo, and then you wake up the next day and go, what are we doing now with our lives? So our purpose in life is we want to create jobs and opportunity for those around us, and that's what we're going to continue to be driven by. Our purpose is people. Our team at the offices, our 5,500 employees out in the field, and to give these emerging brands that we're working with a breath of life to be a regional player. So that's our purpose. But again, it's not easy, and there are failures. I'm going to have Shauna, because she's much more attractive than me, talk about failures, because you guys will probably like him a lot better.
Well, what's fun is that, and you guys have probably all heard this, I was thinking about my days of going to this school and listening to lectures, and I was trying to remember the things that were keeping me up at night. And I don't know if other grown-ups feel this way, but I still feel 20 and like I should be sitting here in college and unstoppable. And I would say don't ever lose that unstoppable element. That will serve you well. But as I was sitting there thinking, what could I share with you, not to scare you, but to prepare you for what's to come, I would say it is to tell you that difficult days are ahead. And I think probably burst a little bubble that failure is inevitable. I don't believe any of you are sitting here not wanting to have success. So I'm just going to tell you right now, if you plan to have any amount of success in your life, then you can expect some failure. And that is okay. It is totally normal. And anyone who tells you differently is wrong, totally wrong. My personal philosophy is that success isn't actually even built on success. It's built on, it's the result of actually, failure, frustration, what is it? Failure, frustration, sacrifice, heartbreak, and hard work. Those don't sound fun, even now as I'm repeating them. They are not fun. Success really is a result of all of these things. Lots of sacrifice, lots of hard work, you guys. In fact, there was a little typo that I had. Sacrifice was in there twice. And I was like, maybe I should just leave it because it is a lot of sacrifice. But lots of frustration, and that's okay. Again, I just want to be the one to reassure you, totally normal. And I would say that there is a little bit of a misconception that sometimes successful people or successful businesses don't fail. And I don't know, what do you guys think? Is that kind of the conception or the misconception out there? Yeah? That they don't fail? That they probably, like Andrew was just saying, they have all success, no problems at all. Well, the truth is, they do fail. And they fail, but they also learn. And I think that's what failure is there to do for us. It's there to teach us. And especially on a high growth trajectory, you can almost guarantee it. I've experienced both success and failure, and I know that you can't have one without the other. It goes hand in hand. And I guess for me, I thought about, okay, if mistakes are inevitable, if failure is inevitable, then what are we to learn from them? So that's what I would suggest. Let's learn from our mistakes. If they're inevitable, let's make the best of it, right? So what can we learn? I'll talk to you about that. Maintaining a positive attitude. We talk a lot about positive attitudes at our office. It really is, it's one of those values that we can't stress enough. I feel like when we hire someone, we're hiring attitude first and then skill set second. And by positive attitude, I'm not meaning you're just running around with a smile on your face, high-fiving everyone. That's not what I mean. It's that moment of maintaining dignity under pressure. It is expecting positive outcomes. It's working hard to have those positive outcomes. That's what I'm referencing by positive attitude. And then, I love this. Recognize that the days that break you are the days that make you. I think that's probably a hard concept to consider, but it really is those times when you're going through the hardest things that you learn the most. And I will also say this, during this time, those days that break you, that is not the time to become a fragile fawn. You need to be tough, you need to be strong, you have to be that beacon of hope for others, especially if you plan to be a leader and be a part of the business world at all. This is not the time during those days that break you to be a fragile fawn. You got to be tough. And then the last thing I would say that we can learn from our mistakes is to find value in our failures. We were talking to a friend just the other night about this, and in some way we can extract lessons from every single failure, what we should repeat, what we shouldn't repeat, how we could do better next time. That way, there's nothing that you spend your time doing that's a waste of time. It's all worthwhile. There's a lesson in it. We just have to find the lessons to extract from it. So those are my suggestions as far as what we can learn from our failures. Would you add anything to those, Drew?
Yeah, it sucks. All of it. I mean, when you're broken and you're sitting in bed looking at the ceiling, going, what am I going to do? You can't be a fragile fawn, but sometimes you feel like you're literally going to just turn it in, cash in your chips, I'm done. It's not supposed to be easy, and it's hard for us to say this because it's like, make sure you have a positive attitude when you're falling apart. That's really hard. But I think what she's saying is that's the time that you have to double down on your toughness, and I do like that.
Yeah.
There's not times that we don't sit across the table and go, I don't know, what do you think? I don't know, what do you think? Shed a tear, then make out. But the bottom line is it makes it tough. She gets really uncomfortable, that's why I say it. She's all squirming out here. But the bottom line, though, is just make sure that you're as tough as you can be during this time, because it is tough. It's never not been easy for me to get through this time. It's really, really, really hard. Because I think Shauna would say, you don't want to fail. You're not okay with failure. I think that we're petrified of failure.
No, in fact, I was thinking about this. I am not one of those people who celebrates failure and goes and has a party. If you were to ask me, I would absolutely say, yeah, I am totally scared to fail. I don't want to fail. And I think that it also is a motivator, at least for me. It has kind of motivated me. I don't want to fail, so if I am going down an incorrect road, I'm going to fail fast and start over. Recognize the issue and move on and start over. So I would say, just to close for me, you're all going to have personal times of adversity and of failure. I have had plenty. I remember one time just being at a place where nothing seemed to go right. Every time I turned around, there was something wrong, yet again, over and over. And it just seemed like, gosh, am I ever going to win? And I think what's funny is I started saying to myself, oh, I've survived another day. And oh, I've survived another day. And before I knew it, I had survived all of my hardest days. And I was on the backside of that difficult time. And you will all survive your hardest days. Success, well, I wrote this down. I didn't want to forget it. Success comes from hard things. Success comes from digging deep. And I thought of this quote when I thought of that. It's an old folklore, and where it says, the same hammer that shatters the glass forges the steel. Think about that. The same hammer that shatters the glass forges the steel. What can break you really can make you.
That statement that she just said, write it down, because honestly, when you have your hard days, it's a one that I refer to all the time. If I'm sitting there complaining to her on the phone or in front of her face, she's like, Andrew, you survived 100% of your hardest days. I'm like, oh, you hate that statement. But it's the true one, so write it down. Like, you have a hard day, write it down and just go, that's right, I've survived another day, because it gets you through it. So moving forward real quick, because we have this like clock over there ticking like it's a bomb or something, so we got to make sure we keep going, is one of the most important ways to overcome failures in our mind. And this might sound stereotypical, or like, yeah, I get it. But I have a unique point on it, and that is teamwork and collaboration. Now, of course, I told everybody my addiction is this, so I'm going to use this as an example here real quick. But teamwork and collaboration is a way you get through failures. When you have a failure you're dealing with, you got to get together with the team, you got to dig deep, and you have to get through that failure together and figure it out. But collaboration, consistent, perfect collaboration between teams, people, what their motives are, is probably one of the most important things to get through the failures, especially in a high-growth company. It's not time to be selfish. It's not time to go sit in the corner and go, you know, the problem with that person is, or the problem with that plan is. That does not help you get through failures. So if you're the leader of a business or a part of an A team or even a B team, the way that you get through failure is through teamwork and collaboration. So I have this example right here. I'm a racer, I told you guys that. And I've gone to races before, and I come into the pits, and when I come into the pits, I probably have a 7-man crew. I race Porsche and Audi, and when I pull in, I just know that I'm going to have about a 35 to 45 second period of time where I get to shift in my chair because I'm sore now, maybe drink some water, while they just replace my wheels. When I replace my tires and my wheels set, it takes them a good 35 to 45 seconds. That's pretty quick on a semi-pro circuit. Then you see something like this, which I'm going to show you guys. I want you just to watch this. This right here is an example of perfect execution on teamwork and collaboration, okay? That is nuts. Was that not crazy? I mean, I don't even care if you like cars, that's still crazy. Now, how many people helped in making that team effort work? How many people? Get the number. How many? Why 24? There's not 24 people there. Oh, you guys got to take math classes again. 1, 2, carry the 4, it's a bit. I think there's 23 on that map right there, 23 people, right? But you're right. That's why I was asking you why you saw 24. It is 24, why? The driver, right? I mean, the driver's part of that team, right? I mean, in my mind, the driver's just a component of making that work right there. Because that took 2.4 seconds. 2.4 seconds, man. Now, the reason why I show you this, and you guys can go online and look at this, this is the Ferrari pit. It's the fastest pit on record. I look at that, and I watch it, and I've taken it down frame to frame. They literally have it so synchronized that there's like one of those dudes that's doing this. And that's all he does, right? Then you have a spotter to make sure that everything is working the right way in that 2 seconds. And he's also important. But the driver has to be ready to push the pedal within 2 seconds, right? You can hear it revving as they're dropping the car. So everybody has to be 100% in sync for that to be possible. I'm fascinated by this video and this film because if you can get that in sync as a team, honestly, no failure is going to get you guys down. As a team and as a company, if you can be in this much sync, you're going to crush your competition. You're going to crush it as a company and a business. I only aspire to be that good as a company, right? That right there probably took thousands of hours to get to that point. So my idea of teamwork that works, taking that as an example, all of those team members have to respect one another, right? And that's a tough one too, because respect is something that's a two-way street. I can't expect your respect unless I respect you, right? I mean, it has to be a two-way street. And people just don't understand that. They want to sit in the corner and go, not until they respect me. That doesn't work that way. You have to respect each other or teamwork just doesn't work. Humility, man, that's a big part of what everybody has to do. And I see less and less humility and more ego and pride. And that breaks down all aspects of humility. You cannot go into a meeting going, I'm so humble. This doesn't work, right? You have to show it. It's an action. You also got to be teachable. You know, when you're in a meeting, you have someone that's a know-it-all. It's tough, right? Everybody's been in a meeting like that. It's still in a meeting. Shauna and I are just like, what does that mean? What does that even mean? I don't even know what you're talking about. Or can you explain that to me? I don't know what that term is. We still do that. We don't know everything. Just be teachable. It's just much better for the team. Best idea wins. It's just a philosophy we go by, and I don't care whose idea it is. I truly don't. You can't say this and then not act on it. Especially as the CEO or the president of the company, you have to be open to all ideas, and it can't be your way. It's got to be the best way. Make sure that that happens, and your team will actually work better together. Mm-hmm. Listen more than talk. That's a tough one for me. I'm from Chicago. We talk a lot. We talk fast, right? But it's something that I've had to exercise more and more of over time. Be patient. Listen to everybody's ideas. Doesn't mean that you can't speed through meetings, right? Death by meeting doesn't work, but be patient. And then loyalty to the team. I could talk about loyalty for an hour here, because I think everybody probably understands what loyalty means. Not in my book. I think most people have to understand what loyalty means, and that is, loyalty to the team means you're all equal, and even when we're not in the room, I would hope that everybody in that room still talks the same way as if I was in the room. And if some of that team breaks off, I call it the close the door policy. If you have to go into a room and close the door so that you and I can talk about things privately, you're the problem and you're not loyal, period. I call it the black plague in a company. I don't do okay with the black plague. I usually root it out of the business because it will kill your company. So just remember, loyalty is that. Close the door. If you have to do that, you're the problem, not the other problem. The mirror in the window is the last thing I wanted to talk about on this. Are you a leader if you're in a leadership position? It doesn't matter if you're a manager, leader, if you're over one person, 3 people, or a team of people. As a leader, are you looking in the mirror saying, look at me, I'm amazing? Or are you looking out a window at your team? What leader are you, right? That guy that drove into that pit, he looked out that window, for sure. Coming in, I've got to stop right on that board. I've got to be ready to punch that freaking clock on my foot within 2 seconds, and everyone else is making my job legit, right? Making it possible. So what kind of leader are you, mirror or window? Make sure that you guys think of that as well. One more thing to overcome high growth pains, and then we'll open it up for some Q&A. I've coined a phrase years and years and years ago called positivity breeds success. Never heard it before. I've used it in my career, and I truly believe it. Even my kids say it to me now. I'm like, oh, it's pretty good. It's burned in their head. At the end of the day, positivity truly does breed success in an organization. Whether you're having failures or you're having success, it'll perpetuate more success, and if you're having failures, it will make the failures easier to get through. Positive people are typically solution seekers. The people that give benefit of the doubt. Giving benefit of the doubt is truly saying that person's intentions are real. There's no nefarious conduct there. I'm sure they meant what they didn't mean what I just took it as. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Make sure that you do that as much as you can because it really does work. We're looking for progression at all times, not perfection. That keeps a positive vibe in our office within an organization. Look for progression. You're never going to be perfect, so don't try. Optimists always outperform pessimists by 50%. Now, I'm not saying that there's not a room in the world for pessimists, just in like Antarctica. That's where they can all go. I'm just kidding. Pessimists really do bring an element to a team that you do need, though. They see things from a different angle than optimists. Sometimes optimists are just blind to what's the real issue. But just remember that if you're a pessimist traditionally, that you come with that pessimistic view, because pessimists are always usually negatively viewed, but bring a solution to then overcome that. I think that's what pessimists need to do. And then increases ability to overcome failure by a long shot if you're positive. So just remember, be positive. I truly am telling you that the success that I've had in my career has been, I'm typically like this, and you can ask my assistant right over here if you want to, she's walking out. I am like this almost 99.9% of the time, and so is Shauna like this. It's not easy. I have to act like this because it's what brings the benefit to the business, the enterprise, but I try to be this always. Mad, frustrated, stressed. I just try to be this way at all times. I promise it works for you.
I think, go back to that slide.
Yes, ma'am.
I was going to say, I like to always leave a challenge whenever I'm visiting with people. And in regards to that last slide, the first two, giving the benefit of the doubt, and what was the first one?
I can't remember.
I'm so sorry.
I'm slow.
Oh, being a solution seeker.
Yeah, solution seeker.
Take the challenge. Do one of those. Try it out this week. I guarantee that you will have success if you do that. And the giving the benefit of the doubt, we started that 3 years ago at our office, really started doing that. It has been a game changer for the attitude, for the culture of our office. It's all of a sudden turned, I mean, people who might have been an enemy into friends because you're all of a sudden like, oh, they've got my back. They're fine. They're not talking about me. They're not trying to sabotage me. It is a game changer. And I would say it came down to the individuals who really took that challenge. But I would say do one of those. Try it. That's my challenge.
The last thing I usually end with this just because it's something that's important to me, and that is, some of you guys saw that pop up. Anybody seen this painting before? Anybody? Nobody? Not one of you? Wow. Usually people go, yeah, I've seen the movie that has that in there. It's a painting by this painter called Rene Magritte. And I'm not a huge person on painters. I don't collect paintings. But I got this painting years ago. It's actually on the wall of my office. It's been in the wall of my office for all of the companies that I've ever started. And a business mentor of mine years ago provided it to me and said, remember not to focus on one thing too much to where it blinds you from everything else great in the world. And it's been my bearing for me as an entrepreneur to make sure that I don't lose focus of what's really important. I talked about purpose earlier. Make sure that you have a purpose so you don't get so blind to what you're actually focused on. Remember to have a long-term view and focus because things are pretty anticlimactic. That apple could represent fame, fortune, ego, greed, pride, all of those things. If you focus too much on it, I promise it will blind you to all the great things that you're experiencing and the journey that you're in as you build a business. Just telling you from experience. It's a good one for me. Last but not least, it's my favorite statement by a philosopher, Epictetus. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Think about that. If you're okay having people go, you're ridiculous, that idea is stupid, or that will never work, man, doubters, those are the things that fuel people like us, right? You guys are all in business majors. It will fuel you when someone says, you can't do that. Watch me. And that's what that philosopher said. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. I've been called many things worse than that, but foolish and stupid definitely fall into that category as well.
It's a compliment now.
It's a compliment. Hey, thank you. I am foolish. Yes, I am. We will now turn it over to you guys.
Yeah.
Yes, for Q&A.
Any questions, anyone?
The back first.
I've got one. So I met the owner of Gandolfo's, and he told me that the store he owns makes about $1 per sandwich. You guys see market like that for restaurants? So it's just selling volume.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's asking, Gandolfo's owner says he makes about $1 a sandwich in profit. So if I tell you my profit, I will have to shoot all of you in here. So I can't, no, I'm just kidding. In the food and beverage industry, it's typically that you have in the teens of margin. So if you're selling something or a whole meal for $10, you're in the teens. So just think 15%, you're making $1.50. So when people come to Shauna and I and say, will you donate all of this food to this venture? Because I'm sure the food is free. It's not free, just so everybody understands, for us either. Then you have all the labor to produce it and transport and stuff. It's a very expensive business, but there is margin. Now, we have actually seen and have experienced businesses that are in the high 20s to low 30s as far as margin, but that is the top echelon of profit in the food and beverage industry.
Yeah.
Tech, the reason why tech's great is that you can make 80-90% on what you're selling as far as you've developed it, now you're selling it. You can make huge margins. The problem is that that's your gross margin. You can have 90% gross margins, but then your SG&A costs on a tech company are heavy. So your net income is usually, as tech, negative. This is a very cash-based business. We'll know within 3 to 6 months if a business is going to work, if it's cash flowing us or not. If it's not cash flowing us, we have to buckle down, bite in. Those are the tough times, the failures, and go, why is this not working like the others? But you can make them work. This is a cash-based business, though, not like tech.
I would add to that, every industry has businesses, and I mean, every industry is fickle. And the restaurant industry is definitely a percentage game. It's keeping all of those percentages in line. And I think that's sometimes the problem that we see with a lot of restaurants who are having struggles is that they've gotten a little over their ski tips in regards to percentages and not able to make that margin.
Well, rapid fire. The other one was right here.
So my dad, he owned about 21 Dickies restaurants in the Four Corners, Dickies Barbecue.
Yeah.
And long story short, they failed because he had a partner that made some bad decisions. What is your opinion on partners?
Oh.
So we have about 138 partners because all of our restaurants have a partner in them. So we actually like partnerships. Do they always work? They work if you set the expectation up front as to what both sides are going to do. I'm going to do this, you're going to do this, and make sure you both kind of upkeep that end of the bargain. We've had some failed partnerships, very few. We're usually the ones that are not going to turn our back on the partner. The partner usually turns their back on us.
Yeah.
But we're always going to try to make it work. So you have to have two very similar-minded people that are willing to chop wood and carry water the same. But I will say in partnerships, I could talk about that for an hour actually, but partnerships, it's making sure that you're shaking the hand with someone that's not the devil based on how you see the world.
Yeah. Commitment.
Yeah.
That's a big part of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm trying.
When and what was your last failure?
My last, when and what? I don't know if I could tell you what because we don't have enough time because it would take 10 minutes to explain the what. My last failure was last week. Before that was probably 3 weeks before that. And before that was probably a month before that. I've had a lot of failures. This year has been a year full of failures and things that I've had to overcome. And you look at that and you're like, how can you have failures? You have a $200 million business and it's growing like crazy. I'm having failures left and right. I just cover them up really well. I cover them up with sauce and food and stuff.
You mentioned when you meet with somebody, you have an open door policy thing. What happens when, like, they basically are like, they can't really be, I don't know what's the word, but like when you have to talk
Discretion, confidentiality, that type of thing?
Yeah, we believe in that. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to have some discretion based on what the topic is. And I'm not saying that you can't have closed-door meetings. I've never said that.
Yeah.
Meaning to my company. I'm saying if you're working in a team and you peel off and you go talk about how the team is wrong and you are right, that's the problem. But when we're talking to employees, yeah, always, if it's confidential or it has to have discussion, it's always a closed-door conversation.
I love that you wanted clarity around that,
Yeah.
though. I think there's sensitive information, there's confidential information, there is that, and that is the time and place for a closed door. Now, wait, long hair guy too. He's got a question, and then...
Oh, long hair guy, you first.
This guy.
I'm sorry, dude. Grow your hair
hang
out.
on, one sec.
I don't even know what hair products I use. Pureology.
Yes, we do. We'll talk about it.
You said humility always has to be present. What does that look like in the company? How do you
Oh.
First of all, as leaders, we have to be humble, or we can't instill that in everybody else. What would you add to that?
I would say the reason humility has to be present is because there has to be an element of empathy and understanding and also learning and teaching and being teachable. And without humility, there's just pride. And when there's pride, no one can penetrate that. And it doesn't seem like there's much momentum in a positive direction with pride, because most people don't like to feel that butting against of personalities. And I would say humility is not the same as weakness. Now, I mean, it's different. You don't want weakness. I think the most confident people are the ones who are humble. And that's what that looks like. It's someone who can listen and really take it in and not just put up a wall.
And if I can add to that, there's a lot of peer pressure in organizations, as we all know. When we work somewhere, there's peer pressure, positive peer pressure. So if you go into a meeting, you're like, there's just not a lot of humility in this team I'm working in. Go in there and then you demonstrate it vocally and very evidently so that they're like, it's pretty cool that he's doing that. And then people start to follow suit because they're like, I want to be more like him because he's a team player that everybody likes right now. I promise it just happens kind of through action. In the back.
Were you both entrepreneurs when you got together?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that. To all the women in the world, and you right here, I was a stay-at-home mom for how many years? 10 years? And still, till this day, my favorite job in the world is the job of being a mom. But I was a stay-at-home mom, and I started in the restaurant business with our first venture, and that's how it started. And he was off doing tech, and I was doing the restaurant business, and I made it look really fun, obviously. So
That's why I
joined
came
me.
and followed too. Yeah, she started the company, and then I came later. In fact, I was in a boardroom, had a real high-powered meeting with some high-powered dudes on my board. And, I wore suits and ties and stuff. And 2 days later, I was in our restaurant, standing at the cash register with a crew hat on, an apron, and I'm like, let's do this. Third person in line was the chairman of my board's wife. She's like, Andrew? I'm like, this is what I'm doing now. I'm doing restaurants. You have to be comfortable in your skin.
More than that, she said, are you okay?
Are you okay? I'm like, I'm doing just fine, thank you. Who else? Who else has got some courage
Here's a
to raise their
question
hand?
right here.
So when you acquire a company like Kneaders, for example, did you go about that by like buying franchises? Were they struggling and you came in at the last hour?
That's a great question.
It's a great question. So early on, we enjoyed Kneaders. I think it's been around for 20 years now. When we got involved, it was 10 years old. They had 5. I think they were opening 6th restaurant after 10 years. And that was the whole idea. Like, why is a restaurant that's that good and that's doing that well here, it has this cult following, why isn't it doing more restaurants? When I got involved in the business, it's like, wow, it's because it's hard. It's hard to run a restaurant and go home and then figure out how to grow the restaurant business, or grow the restaurant brand. So I went to them and said, let's partner together, the founding family. I'll go out and build a bunch of these things. We'll partner together. I want exclusive rights to the brand within a certain territory. And we made that relationship, and they never went with anybody else. We just had a great relationship, and it's been a great 10-year run.
And to answer the last part of your question, were they needing money or were they struggling?
No.
The answer is no. There's not been one brand that we have purchased or partnered with that was in a place of struggle. They most always start as places that we love to eat in general. And then we just start a conversation with the founders. And then it's like, hey, let's partner up. You know what you're doing on this end of the restaurant. We can become the engine behind you.
And we're the rocket fuel. We don't come up with the rocket. Right here. We have 2 more minutes.
So I don't necessarily work in, like I've worked in restaurants
big problem.
So how do you guys deal with people in your, like the franchise location?
Such a great question.
It's a great question. We could spend an hour on that.
Yep.
You have to invest, double, triple down on the investment into leadership training to give people tools and skills. We call it king building. We're building kings in our organization, whether they stick with us or go somewhere else in life. And there's been several people that have come, worked with us, and now are off doing their own thing. We're so glad that they've received skill sets that they carried on to their business ventures because of what they've learned with us. So we have a whole leadership development and training core of our business. You have to do that, or people are never going to know how to work with each other.
And that's how we train our leadership. But as far as maybe for you, if you are an employee, look for an opportunity with an employer who does value positive leadership. We personally have a goal of ridding the world of bad bosses. And so we're trying to constantly train our bosses how to be better. But also, I think to know that it's an important thing for the people at the senior leadership level, then you know that hopefully whatever does happen, if it is a bad experience, it will be remedied and fixed.
All the bad bosses are on the other side of the lake. We take them out there.
Read multipliers, by the way. That's a good one for
You had
that.
a question right here.
Yeah, you said one of your goals was to create many jobs, and then the fit in the South, so there's lots of low-paying jobs.
Yeah.
And on the political forefront, getting higher wages. How's that
Oh, yeah.
work with your guys' side?
It's a great question.
We obey the law first.
I could spend a bunch of time talking about that too.
Yeah.
Minimum wage we've never paid. We've paid a higher rate than that because we feel like people have to live on something that's respectable.
And it helps with less turnover.
Yeah, you pay them a little bit better. If you train them, if you give them another purpose with training, they want to stay too. We have lower turnover than most in the industry. But I actually think it does have to come up. The sad thing is that all of us are going to pay a pro rata share of that because as we pay more and more, the price has to increase. Inflation does affect all of us. One last question.
Pletcher.
I'll two, because they did it at the same time. Sorry, Tom.
How many of your employees are not actually inside a restaurant?
A couple hundred. Yeah, so we have corporate offices here, and then Birmingham, Alabama, we have 2 corporate offices. We're in Pleasant Grove and then here.
You mentioned you had a business mentor. How did you go about like getting a business mentor?
I said business mentor, but to be honest with you, I never had one. I never had a business mentor. I looked for one. I tried to find one. I tried to figure it out. I just could not find one that would give me the time of day. So I try to spend about an hour or 2, if I can fit it, per week with an entrepreneur that's looking at starting a business or growing it. Schedule it with my assistant, get your name on the list, because I never had someone I could ask. So I've helped a lot of different businesses here locally just with some time and some advice of what I wish someone would have told me. I had a mentor. He was the president of Sears and Roebuck. Sears and Roebuck used to be cool. I'm from Chicago. I mean, Sears was cool. But he was the president of Sears and Roebuck. I knew him in Chicago, and he was the one that helped me through some things at the very, very beginning. He passed away, and so I didn't have him for very long.
I think that's time.
I think that's time. I'm so sorry, guys. It was a pleasure to be with you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, guys.